Hello and welcome, guys, to a whole new, actually the first episode of Deciphered right here on the all-new CryptoCast Network. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. This really is, again, our first episode, so we're super excited to have a lot of information for you guys here today. As you can see, we have started this new network, the CryptoCast Network. We are screen sharing here to show you guys that we do have a couple. We have a few shows on the channel right now, the Bitcoin News Show, of course, Crypto Tech Live, and this show here, Deciphered. And we're going to have a bunch more show for you guys in the future. And then, of course, we just started this programming with Bitcoin.com workshop, which is very similar to Jimmy's workshop that teaches you how to work directly on Bitcoin. And here, this workshop teaches you to work directly with Bitcoin. So this is for application developers, specifically C# application developers, to begin integrating Bitcoin into their systems. And again, this is a complimentary course with Jimmy's. Jimmy's is a great course as well to actually teach you how to work, actually teach you regular developers how to work with protocol. So that is Jimmy's making protocol developers and I'm making application developers. So check it out, guys. We actually just did open 2 new locations as well. The first one is going to be Las Vegas here on September 1st. And we just opened up a couple new locations in San Francisco and Seattle. So you can see that October 6th for San Francisco and November 3rd for Seattle. And of course, this website does take only Bitcoin via the amazing software, the open source software called BTC Pay Server. And within the course, we actually will teach you guys how to work with BTC Pay Server as well. So check that out. Let's without further ado, let's stop the screen share here and get right into it. Thanks again, guys, so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. We have a lot to talk about today, so let's go ahead and get into it. Today, we're going to be talking about the very famous OpenDime and ColdCard wallet with the one and only Rodolfo Novak. So, Rodolfo, thank you, man, so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Hey, good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. We've had you on the Bitcoin News Show a bunch of times, and of course, we get to see you every day, almost every day these days, on Tone Show, the Bitcoin Brief in the mornings. We really enjoy your commentary there, your technical well, I was going to say technical analysis, but your technical analysis of the actual hardware, not in the sense of trading. But we really appreciate that, Rodolfo. So thanks, man, so much for that every morning. You guys, you, Tone, and Leah, and even Giacomo over there, guys, with Jimmy Song. It's a great show. So guys, make sure you check that out and follow both Rodolfo NVK on Twitter and, of course, the one and only famous Tone Vase on Twitter as well. So without further ado, let's get into this a little bit, Rodolfo. So, you have kind of made some waves in the crypto space with this technology. We're actually now, I think, on the third iteration of OpenDime. And so there's within the cryptocurrency community, there's a few people that know about you, but I really want to continue talking about this because I don't think enough people know about this. Yeah, I mean, I talked to even some hardcore Bitcoiners, at various conferences, and I'm like, have you guys got an OpenDime? And they don't know what I'm talking about, some of them. And it blows my mind that people don't know yet about this. So I just, again, want to get you on, Rodolfo, to talk again about this OpenDime. So first, if you could just let the audience know a little bit, like maybe how it all started, and maybe from there go right into the OpenDime, and maybe even hold it up a little bit when you get a chance to, so we can all take a look at it.
This is the OpenDime. It's this little device.
No, don't drop the device.
There you go. It's okay. That's fine. So this is what the device is. This is the third iteration of it. So a few years ago, we used to, actually many years ago now, we used to run a centralized Bitcoin service wallet that was multi-sig and all kinds of cool security stuff. And we sort of got tired of being a centralized service. So we sort of started analyzing what kind of other hardware we could make that would facilitate Bitcoin exchange for noobs, that it was completely decentralized, right? And we sort of play around with a lot of stuff, and we end up at what this device is. The previous one used to break a little tab there. So we were thinking, how can you make a bearer instrument, a bearer bond for Bitcoin? So make Bitcoin the way Bitcoin is. So you have to own the private keys, right? So that you own the Bitcoin, but physically, right? There were a few sort of paper wallets in the market. There is the Calcitius coin, but all those you had to trust that the person who gave you the device wasn't going to cheat you and take the Bitcoins back because they have a copy of the private key. Now, with OpenDime, we use some pretty clever crypto with a security element and an MCU there to generate a private key for you that you don't know, but we can prove that we don't know the private key because we use some entropy from you as well. And that's the key to how this thing works. So essentially, you have the device, you put it in your computer, or I think some phones you can do it too. You dump a little bit, an image of a certain size or any file, really. Essentially, you're just giving us some data that we don't know from factory, right? And then we set up, we generate a private key, and we show you only the Bitcoin address. So you can deposit Bitcoin in it. And now when you give this to the next person as a payment, let's say this OpenDime is worth $100, right, of Bitcoin. So when you give this to a person, to the next person, they can stick it, check that, they can check the signatures, and they can check the amount on the device, right? And when they check it, they know for sure that you do not have the private keys. Only they have it now. So just like gold, once you pass that bar to the next person, they can't take it back, right? Unlike a paper wallet, the originator doesn't know the private key. And that's how this thing works. So now I'm all happy. I received my $100. Great. Now I can go and give this to the next person when I'm trying to buy something, and then another person, right? So essentially, you just keep on passing on the same UTXO set, the same Bitcoin, without any, like, the confirmations are already done, right? So, but it's immediate because you're passing on the UTXO itself to the next person. Now, here's the cool thing. Now, let's say I want to sell these Bitcoins on an exchange, or I want to buy something online. What I do is I go here. There is a little hole in the back that says Bitcoin. I stick a push pin there. I push it, and just a little resistor comes out just to break the circuit. Now, the key is when this thing gets powered on again, it changes some address, like some address memory on the security element that cannot be reversed. It's one-way write. So that means that even if you solder back the little resistor there, it doesn't matter. The OpenDime knows it has been unsealed. And now it displays the private key. So all you have to do is you can use, say, Samurai Wallet, right, to sweep that private key into any address you want.
Awesome, awesome stuff. So I just like to do a quick review, Rodolfo, and you tell me how far I'm off on this maybe. But just so basically what this really is, this is a physical Bitcoin bearer instrument where you can actually pass on Bitcoin physically without actually having to transfer it digitally on the network itself. You can just put the Bitcoin on this physical device that is the size of a flash drive. It's really small. You can put this the Bitcoin on the device and then hand that off to anybody, and they can actually be confident that it is secure because of that no tampering device that you have on there. So you can actually tell if it's been cracked, if it's been open, and if it's been tampered with. So this allows people to actually distribute Bitcoin like cash. It's digital cash, but now physical. So you can even take this OpenDime and maybe put it in a safety deposit box or in a safe or anywhere where you would actually store physical goods previously, like gold and cash and things like that. And so let me ask you then, Rodolfo, what is your vision a little bit with the OpenDime? So what happens when more and more people start using the OpenDime with Bitcoin? Like, let's say a bunch of third world countries started using this. What is your vision? What happens then to the Bitcoin, to the ecosystem, to OpenDime, to how people perceive Bitcoin? What are your thoughts on that?
So we actually call it the Rio Bitcoin Cash. TM. So nice. You know, we've been in Bitcoin for long enough to understand that there is a massive amount of the population that would never want to deal with the technical requirements for you to make Bitcoin safe to use, right? And I personally don't trust phones with private keys unless you're talking about like a few bucks, right? So, you know, and your computer is a cesspool of bad software stealing stuff, even accidentally. So you can't trust your devices, or you can't trust your phone, you can't trust your computer. So how do a person that is not technically sophisticated right, does Bitcoin like for daily activity, right? So that's sort of why we came up with this. It's like a joke to set up. Like it takes just a few seconds. People are always fascinated. Like, what? There's no more steps. It's pretty cool. So we're selling a ton of these, like for some years now, and we've noticed that a lot of the volume comes from people who sell Bitcoin. So local Bitcoiners, for example, what they do is they'll buy a bunch of these. The person ahead of time tells them how much Bitcoin they want to buy, right? So instead of him bringing his wallet on his phone, which risks him getting robbed or something, he brings no Bitcoin but what's already agreed upon in a OpenDime. But because you don't have to wait for confirmation, you don't have to wait 40 minutes sitting down with a stranger who could rob you, right? It makes the transaction very easy. The receiver, in a Starbucks or something, you give him the OpenDime, he checks to make sure it's secure. Sorry, it's unsealed, and that maybe the signatures check depending on kind of trust level you have with the person. He can verify, right? And then he just gives you the cash, and boom, you walk out. There is no waiting. There is just nothing. And then it comes the privacy of that, right? I mean, you can be careful about that. There's no transaction between you and him on the blockchain. This could be passed along 50, 1,000 other times, and you never know. Like there is no trace in the blockchain between the two of you.
And that is powerful. That's just real quick. So I want to interrupt you, Rodolfo. That's just super powerful because, privacy is something that we're talking a lot about these days in Bitcoin. Now that the scalability is kind of mostly dealt with, that we have SegWit and Lightning, we are focusing more on privacy now. And so this is just an excellent tool for privacy because, like you say, there is no history on the blockchain. You can pass this around ad infinitum across the world. So before you finish, Rodolfo, let me just ask you, are these available to everybody across the world? Can just anybody with the internet connection and Bitcoin purchase one of these?
Yes, we ship worldwide. I mean, there is a few countries that we can't ship to because, whatever, like let's say Canada and I don't know, maybe Iran have problems. I can't remember. There is a few countries we unfortunately can't ship to. Sure. But, people have been solving those problems for a long time. They'll ship to another country and then they go pick it up but essentially we have been shipping now this to 180 countries for 2 years, 3 years, I can't remember now. And people do buy. I mean, we see it, like the list of flags on the shopping cart system. It's amazing. It's like every single country. And then some countries have resellers, so local resellers you might be able to find through those methods. Just make sure you check the device. We don't have official resellers. We don't trust anybody. That's just how we operate.
Well, let me ask you this, Rodolfo. So you guys are, trying to make this, I assume, available to as many people as possible across the world. So let me ask you this: Are you guys actively working to perhaps bring the price down? Because it's already insanely cheap, guys. Just so you know, this is cheaper than any hardware wallet out there already. I think it's like $30, right? $35, something.
As somebody pointed out, OpenDime is a lot cheaper than a duffel bag. Absolutely. A lot more cash.
Absolutely. Very, very true. But so I was wondering, are you guys actively working to reduce costs for the chip to eventually maybe bring down the price every year or?
So for a possible next version. So one of the main issues, and this is why it's so hard to bring costs down, is security elements, right? We use actual security hardware, unlike some other wallets out there that don't. When you have secure elements, the price is higher, unfortunately for parts. So what we already sort of, I think, pretty much got to the cheapest we can get, meaningful cheapness that we can get out of the security element. We have a pretty good supplier relationship. Now, hopefully for the next version, we are going to figure out other ways of reducing costs. But yes, that is a consideration, right? The cheaper, the better. But we're not going to sacrifice security for price. That is just not the product I want to make.
Okay, so let me just get back to my previous question a little bit. Maybe just rephrase it. What is the 10,000 foot view? What does the 10,000 foot view look like in a world where we have millions of these floating around, even in third world countries all over? Well, just because obviously we've talked about how it helps with privacy and it's cheap and it's a great way to transfer Bitcoin. But what does it actually do maybe to the Bitcoin ecosystem in the future?
So think in terms of thinking. Sorry to interrupt you. Think in terms of like a prepaid Visa cards, right? You can walk into any convenience store, any pharmacy, any sort of shop that sells random stuff, right, and buy a prepaid Visa card or some other sort of like card that holds some value, right? The difference is those are centralized authorities, right? So this is essentially the cash card without an any, right? Like you can do whatever you want and nobody can do jack about it.
So that's really cool. And to me, that's really, really, really powerful, guys. This is building on the back of Bitcoin here. So this is building on the ethos of Bitcoin, which is privacy, which is verify. Don't trust, verify. So this is some really cypherpunk ideals, I think, that you guys are building into this hardware. So that is really, really cool. And I think that, when we have a world where we have decentralized debit cards, I mean, you could do a lot of different stuff. That really opens up commerce, even more in Bitcoin, because you think Bitcoin already opens up free trade like never before. But now when we start combining these hardware bearer instruments like OpenDime, maybe we can even take that further and really, really start penetrating third world countries that have, that deal with a lot less money per day.
There is a lot of these countries, including first world too. There is a lot of infrastructure for physical custody of like valuable physical custody, right? So there's brinks everywhere, kind of thing. People have safes. People already are set up to handle physical custody. So people are not set up to handle digital custody. And we see this because everybody gets robbed of their Bitcoins from their wallets and their computers, right? So with this, you're only really handling physical security unless you unseal it. But then, it's a quick transaction to get it out. So you're not as concerned. And you can also work in denominations, right? So you can fill up a bunch, like ideally you have a bunch of OpenDimes, and they all have sort of like different denominations. So you can use it like cash. But the key here is, the true dream is like you walk anywhere in the world that you need to pay somebody. You grab one from the store, you load it, boom, you do your thing.
Very, very cool. And that is an amazing dream as well, I think, Rodolfo. I think for the people to be able to just walk in anywhere and hand over an OpenDime, I mean, that's going to be cool. And I think that as much as people love retail, as much as people love the idea of buying coffee with their Bitcoin, I think that instruments like this is just far more powerful and can do far more things. Maybe you might not want to buy your coffee with it, but hey, if you can do your daily transactions, like larger transactions, maybe if you're a merchant and you have to go buy a bunch of supplies and material, and at your local town, you can just walk over and quickly swap an OpenDime and vice versa. So this is, I think this becomes really powerful. So let me ask you then. There is a question from the chat, but before I ask that question, I would like to correct. The OpenDime is not $35. It's like $35 for a pack of 3, I think. So that's really, at this point, it's really like $10.
Yeah, I mean,
per OpenDime.
And remember, right? The cost amortizes as you pass it down. So like I see the future in Bitcoin essentially going like this. You're going to have Lightning for anything that is sort of like a web sale of a thing that is below a threshold. So say like anything's below $1,000 or something like that. People are just going to use Lightning. Right. Sure. And that's also going to be great for phones. It's like Starbucks, right? So you can buy your latte with Lightning. Now, for everything else, people are going to do real transactions, right? Like, and for those, you're going to have to wait for confirmation. Now, in the meat space, you're going to just use something like this.
Yep, that makes sense. And I just kind of wanted, before I ask that question, just want to reiterate, guys, phone security these days, I mean, it is just not that great. I mean, look, you want to store a little bit of Bitcoin on your phone wallet, that's great. I mean, sure, a few dollars, $100, whatever. But in the end, it's really just not that great. And it's going to be years before we have some built-in stuff, built-in technology into mainstream phones specifically for Bitcoin, like, a hardware, a separate chip maybe, or something like that, a hardware specific phone for Bitcoin. So it's going to be a while before we have this kind of stuff, at least mainstream tested. It takes years of iteration and years of being out in the ecosystem for people to test this stuff and things like that. So again, the OpenDime has a huge advantage here. Again, this is the 3rd iteration. So they've been out out here. They've been out in the wild. They've been testing. They always are adhering to the latest BIPs. And in fact, the next product we'll talk about shortly, the ColdCard, actually was waiting on a specific BIP, which is the Bitcoin Improvement Proposal.
Yeah.
So, but go ahead.
Well, before we get to his question, I just want to add one thing. What's fascinating to me is how like users normally figure out other uses for the device before that you are not designed for. So people figured out, hey, my computer is not a safe device. My phone is not a safe device. How do I do cold storage? Right? How do I generate the key for my cold storage? So what people have been doing is they buy OpenDimes, they initialize it, right? They take out they unseal it in a Raspberry Pi or something like a secure device, and then they back up the private key. So you have for $10 you can generate a ultra safe private key that you don't have to worry that your computer was sort of like leaking data or that your phone was leaking data, right? Because that's one of the biggest challenges of generating private keys for cold storage.
Absolutely. And that's again, super powerful, guys. The ability to securely create and back up your private key is huge in the Bitcoin space because, people have tried various different things like green address, on the internet with moving your mouse around to create more entropy. There's a bunch of interesting ideas out there. But at the end of the day, this is definitely one of the most secure ways to generate a private key. And that's just really powerful. You don't want to be doing this thing on any computers that are connected to the internet or even any Windows machines or even any phones. Look, when you're talking about a lot of Bitcoin, so OpenDime is so powerful because it's really great for little amounts of Bitcoin to transfer around. But again, you can very securely create private keys to be able to store large amounts of Bitcoin. So if physical security is more your thing, more than software security, you can securely create your private key with this OpenDime and then use all the physical security that we've used and learned for over the past 10,000 years to secure your private keys and your OpenDime. So that's just really cool. Very awesome point, Rodolfo. Let's go ahead and just ask this question real quick. So let's see. Do you find that users are impatiently breaking the seal and grabbing the private key before, because they're a little bit too paranoid, or what is the ratio? How many, example keys, or sorry, of your average OpenDime, how many people like break the seal and how long does that usually take?
We're not a centralized service. We don't know.
Ah, see, very, very cool. Yeah, but I'll let you, from your experience, I'll let you talk though.
Yeah, so we cannot tell what people do with their OpenDimes. We do hear, and totally, people come to us and tell us, things, but people do tend to keep it in there for quite a while and pass it along like many times. We see like a lot of the use comes from people in local Bitcoins. It's quite fascinating how much of it.
Very, very cool. All right. Well, I think we can. Well, before we actually move on to the next product, I maybe want to screen share a little bit, just a little bit of what you might see when you first start opening up an OpenDime. I think we have a couple screens for you guys, so let me just share real quick for the audience that's watching live. For the audio audience, I'll try to explain what's going on here. So let me screen share and present to everyone here. So what we have here is, maybe I'll let Rodolfo kind of go along and describe everything. So what are we looking at here, Rodolfo?
So once you put it in a computer or on a phone, you're going to be presented with this, right? It's just quick explanation of what you have to do to set up an OpenDime. So essentially, you have to just sort of like put a file of 250 kilobytes into the device. It shows as a storage device. We just emulate that. It's not really a storage device. And once you put it in, the device just reboots. And then it goes into sealed mode. So it's, I think, the next tab.
Okay, let's check that out here. This would be the sealed page that the
user will see. So this is an initialized OpenDime. That's your Bitcoin payment address. That's how people also check the balance. If you don't ask our service to see your key, you don't have to click check balance, right? You just check the actual Bitcoin address. This is all fully contained, and it has no connection to the internet. We did it in a way that all the stuff is self-contained.
Very, very cool.
Information. And then let's say you're done. You receive this from somebody else. You want to cash in the Bitcoins into your phone or your computer. It goes into the unsealed mode. Once you take the pin out, Big warning. And this is your private key in WIF format. You just have to sweep that with your phone or computer.
So there you guys, there you have it, guys. I mean, this is really easy. As you can see, everything, all of their interfaces, it looks like here is browser-based, so it's really simple to use. Everything is displayed, and again, can be used completely offline. So that's just really powerful. Be able to check your balance, check your private key. So very cool. So we went over the setup here, explaining what to do, and then of course you got your sealed screen here for when it's still sealed, and then when you want to unseal it and back up that private key, this is the screen that you'll see here, the unsealed. Very, very, very cool. Thank you so much, Rodolfo. Let's move on to the next. Let's stop screen sharing and move on to the next product here. Actually, I'm going to continue screen sharing just a little bit more. Well, I'll screen share while you're talking. So first, let's go click on you. There we go. All right, so let's talk about this this next product here, which we have is the ColdCard wallet. A lot of people are really talking about this in the industry. This is really great because I think this is providing even more hype for OpenDime. Like this is a whole new hype cycle, and so I really think that that's really cool to be able to have additional ways to bring back the audience to the original product, because the OpenDime, in my opinion, is almost more important than the ColdCard, but they're equally important. And so this is really great to see more people find the OpenDime with this ColdCard. So without further ado, let's have you, Rodolfo, tell the audience why we need this ColdCard. First of all, what it is and why we need it.
So back when we used to have the ColdCard, the CoinKite service, that's where I used to store my funds. And that's where a lot of people used to start their funds. And it was a very good setup and very safe. We closed it down, and I was like, okay, great. Where do I store my stuff now? And there's two main products on the market, and I didn't like the security chain of either of them. Right. One of them is uses a secure element, which is the right way of doing these things, but is closed source. The other one is open source, but it doesn't use a secure element. And I simply cannot trust cryptography done in a hardware device that does not use secure elements. It's just not a good idea. So essentially, I had an itch I had to scratch. And me and Peter came up with this.
Oh, 1 second. Let me stop screen share. And
you can show the screen share.
There you go.
So yeah, so this is the device. This is in my hand here.
Very, very cool. It's really slick, guys. It's really small. It's about the size of a credit card.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's the literal size of a credit card. I think that's what we got to. See here.
Beautiful. Yep, the size of the credit card, and from looking at it, just from a non-techie point of view, just kind of looks like a calculator almost.
Yes.
Just when you just take a quick glance, but of course, it's much more powerful than that. So I'll let you continue, Rodolfo.
Yeah. So we so here's like the specs we had as like personal specs. It had to be open source. You had to have a secure element. It had to have SD card capabilities, and it had to have a better pin setup than what was available by the other options, right? And I think we really sort of achieved that. What we did is first the physical security of the hardware, right? So the case is clear, so you can actually see inside and know if something iffy is going on, if somebody's trying to evil mage you. Evil mage is the type of attack when somebody gets hold of the hardware and try to steal your pin or something like that. So the hardware is clear. You can check the hardware. Now, the pin setup, it really is part of the magic here. One is, of course, we use a secure element to store pins. It's a whole next level of security there than what's available. And what we did is there's a pin prefix and a pin suffix. It's essentially almost like two pins, right? So when you turn it on, you put your pin, your first part of the pin, and then you press enter. You're going to be shown two words. Those two words come from the secure element. I think the math is like 1 in 4 million or something. So it's an anti-phishing thing, because if the device has been compromised, it's pretty hard because we check the boot. But let's say it's a fake device, right? Like they copied everything and it's sitting in your desk and you don't know. And it's sending the pin to the guy sitting in the other room, and he has the actual real OpenDime, right? So let's say you type your pin, you get displayed these two words that were given to you when you did the initial setup. And if the words don't match, destroy it. Don't put the second part of the pin, because when you press enter for those two words, then you're going to be asked for the rest of the pin. So the rest of the pin, you put it in. So let's say the two words were good. You put in the second part of the pin, and boom, you're in. So now you can sign transactions and do your business, right? So now there's three ways we sort of handle, two ways we handle the $5 wrench attack, right? So let's say somebody, like a non-violent actor is trying to sort of like see how much you have on it or something like that, right? You can put a different pin and it takes you to a different wallet in the same wallet. So they won't know that if it's a distressed wallet or not. There is no, like, it's not like the seed of an extra password, because you could get beaten into giving that, right? No, it doesn't. You cannot tell which pin takes you where.
That's pretty amazing. Defeating the $5 wrench attack for the most part.
Yeah, for the most part, right? Like, I mean, so but here's the thing, right? If the attacker kind of knows that you probably have more than what you're showing, he's going to keep on beating you, right? So now we have a second thing that is my preferred solution, right? Which is brick me pin. So because we use security micros, security elements, we have one-way writes available to us, right? So what we can do is, if you type a pin that looks exactly like a normal pin, but you choose, so you have this special pin, the device becomes a brick. You cannot unbrick it. It's gone. It's literally garbage. You're gonna have to sort of remake your wallet with the seed in your backup. But at least you're safe. I mean, it's a lot safer. Let's put it this way: you're not safe. It's just safer. You're just gonna have to assess your situation and figure out. But as we like to say it, if these things are real considerations for you, you probably want to rethink your lifestyle. Because security, it's a bit more in depth, right? And that sort of brings me to another thing. We do security in depth for manufacturing as well. So we control the whole chain. So we get the security micros from the supplier, and then the factory doesn't have really our firmware. Like, it's a special machine that they have to plug it in to make the devices, to program the devices. And then everything gets checked. It creates a boot, and then it asks. So we have security bags. I don't have one with me right now, but we have essentially anti-tamper, like a tamper evidence bags. They're very similar to what banks use for cash deposits. So if there is any tampering, you can tell. And now here's where it gets really cool. The bag has a serial number, and the serial number is in the secure firmware of the device. So before they bag each device, they scan the bag, serial number of the bag goes in the device, and then it goes inside the bag. So it's strapped in, right? So in order for you to tamper it, one, you can't tamper the device because it's in the secure element, but you also can't make another bag with the same serial number.
It can't be resealed.
It can't be resealed. So that's how it ships to you. It comes in a safe bag. So that's one thing. And then another security. So like, this is the thing, like we kept on sort of like, the device is being made. How do we make the making as safe as possible? Nothing is perfect, right? But like, how can we make as safe as possible in the manufacturing? Then how do we make shipping as safe as possible? How do we make the setup as safe as possible? How do we make now creating the pin and managing the pin as safe as possible, right? And we have a lot of experience in this space. So it gave us a lot of sort of like food for thought and things that we know that people go through because there's been wallets for some time now. And then now this is another beef of mine, is that how do I do secure backups, right? You don't want to have to expose your keys through a computer or through something to write them down. Or so, for example, you don't want to have plain text keys in, say, the bank or your house, right? Because you could be coerced into giving the seeds, or a bad government could go and take the seeds out of your safe deposit box. So how do I encrypt private keys without using a computer was the key. So we put the SD cards. So there's an SD card slot there. And when you have a choice to back up, encrypt it. And what we do is we give you, I think it's 12 words that you write those down. Those would be the password for an encrypting the backup. You're muted.
Whoops. Can you show? Sorry. Can you show the where we put that card in there one more time? I had it on screen share. There
Yeah, sure. So it goes right here.
Beautiful. Perfect.
Oh, there you go.
So he's Rodolfo is showing that you can put in a micro SSD card directly into the device itself.
Yeah. So then you make a secure encrypted backup into the SD card. And if you're smart, you get the industrial grade SD cards we sell in our store. These are the same SD cards they put in race cars and sort of like trains and things like that. And then you put this SD card into a safe deposit box and in another safe deposit box. So you have maybe a few. But the key is if somebody gets hold of your backup, they can't steal your coins.
And that's cool. That's important.
Where you generated the backup is the same device that you trusted with the keys anyways. So you don't have to deal with another device.
Very, very cool. So let me just do a quick recap, if I can, then, Rodolfo, of all this here. So it's a lot, guys. But look, this cold call wallet, because some people are asking, like, why is this different than a Trezor? Or why don't I just go and buy a Trezor? Look, guys. It's also cheaper. So let me say this, guys. Look, so this cold card wallet really is kind of the first of its kind, and it's really a niche product because this is the first product to be able to take as many aspects of the creation process as possible and secure that. So we're talking all the way from the manufacturer to the security chip to even the bag that it's placed in is a step above any other hardware wallet that you can ever find on the market right now. There is nothing else that is as secure as this product. And again, it was very, very intentional. Now, this product is also slightly more, maybe a little bit more difficult to use than the Trezor. Really, it's almost just as simple because it gives you the words that you need to write down and all that kind of thing. But what's really great about this is kind of like a cypherpunk ethos type of product. So, for example, you can look at it and you can see that they expose they show the actual chips that you can see. You flip the device over and you can see the chips that they use in there. You can see the hardware that they use in there because it is transparent. Because again, the goal is to be as transparent as possible, to be able to be as secure as possible. So this product is basically just the next level of security in the hardware wallet game. How about that, Rodolfo? Does that sound about right?
Yeah, no, that's it. And now let's get into the cypherpunking here. We haven't gotten to that yet.
That's true. So before we do that, let me just ask you this question, because this one person was like, my biggest concern is that you cannot back up the private key, so you have to trust the device will not conk out on you in the future. What is your response?
You can make a clear text backup as well if you want.
There you go.
So you can make clear text, and when you set up the device, it shows you the words, so you can write them down too. You should write them down. Like, awesome. You have to, you will need one at least clear text backup if you're smart, right? But the key here is how can you, maybe that one is like, I don't know, like cemented under some property you have, like some crazy way of keeping it. That's the ultimate backup. But the key is how can you decentralize your backups, right? Distribute them in a way that you don't have to trust where they are as much.
Yes, and that's powerful. That makes sense. That's the key there, is to reduce trust as much as possible. Reduce that trust, guys. That's what the cypherpunk ethos is. So maybe, Rodolfo, you can go into a little bit more. We have a few more minutes here, so maybe you can go a little bit more into the cypherpunk ethos that went into this product.
Why were we waiting for PBST BIP 174? So there is essentially this new standard now for unsigned transactions. So wallets and explorers can create, so if they know your public key, your extended public key, they can create transactions for you, but then they don't have to handle the keys, right? Like if you have a hardware wallet with Electrum, right? Now, the key here is, the current solutions, they require you to USB to your computer. You can do that with this too, but it's a terrible, bad thing to do because, if somebody finds a flaw and through the USBs, how they're going to get there? And it's not cold anymore.
And
right?
that's an important point because, guys, we have all these wallets that claim to be cold, but like the Trezor, but unfortunately, you do actually have to still connect to your computer. And of course, they designed that to be still as secure as possible under those conditions. But again, those conditions already, guys, are starting. Will start to pretty much reduce your security right away through an order of magnitude. As soon as you USB that into your computer, now you've already destroyed a lot of your security aspects. But go ahead, Rodolfo.
It's not cold. It's not cold storage anymore.
No longer cold, yes.
It's plugged to a computer.
That's right.
So what we did is, with PBST, your wallet, like we're going to use Electrum. By the way, you don't have to download apps or anything from us to use ColdCard. ColdCard was designed to work with any wallet that uses PBST BIP174 files, right? So Samurai wallet is it's almost done if it's not done yet. We have a fork of Electrum that already works with it. They're going to merge eventually, but you can download the source from us and run that. And we're going to also distribute the binaries for this Electrum fork, but you don't have to use ours. Now, here's the thing. So you go on your computer, you generate your PBST. So let's say I want to pay Vertex. So he gives me a private Bitcoin address. I go on my Electrum, I put it there. I set up how much I want to send, and then I can save a file to your SD card. I go, into my Faraday cage, put my my tin hat foil. I get the cold card from where it's hidden and stuff, and then I plug the cold card into just a USB battery. So it powers it on. I stick the SD card in it. I sign the transaction. I take it out because it saves the signed transaction back into the SD card. I take it out, I bring it, and I broadcast it. And I don't have to even use, I can use whatever service or whatever thing to broadcast the transaction.
Now that is pretty amazing, Rodolfo. So let me just go into that a little bit, guys. So look, this wallet can actually still sign transactions completely offline. Completely cold. This is why Rodolfo calls it the cold card, guys, because this actually always can remain 100% cold, 100% not connected to the internet. So just really briefly, again, to explain that, you create your transaction, put it on a little micro SD, and then plug that into your cold card that is completely offline, off the internet. Sign that transaction, take the device, the actual micro SD out, and then you can broadcast that transaction from anywhere with an internet connection, or even a satellite connection to Blockstream, right? Or even some kind of radio GoTenna connection, anywhere, guys, that you can connect to the internet, to the Bitcoin blockchain. You can then broadcast 100% anonymously. Is that right, Rodolfo?
That's correct. And then you can use your Onion browser. You can do whatever you want. The key here is it's not my business to have anything that is related to how you connect to the network. It's really cypherpunky. We want to make sure this device has nothing to do with anything else in your stack.
Can we make that a hashtag, guys? Can we get that trending? Hashtag cypherpunky, because that's pretty good. Hashtag cypherpunky, guys. That's what we're gonna try to make live today. Very, very cool. Right. Now, this really is the cypherpunk ethos, and this is what we try to bring guys on the show. We try to bring you people like this, like Rodolfo, who are actually industry, leaders, who are entrepreneurs, developers in the space, actually trying to make a go of it, trying to actually create something in the ethos of Bitcoin, with the spirit of Bitcoin, and not just try to cash in on another ICO or another. I mean, just look at what John McAfee is doing with his BitFi, with his, oh my God, I don't even want to bring it up, guys, but it's horrible. It's horrible stuff, guys. So remember, pay attention to the cypherpunks in the space, like Rodolfo. He will show you guys the way. You do not pay attention to freaking politicians and people who can't program, like Roger, like McAfee. So I just wanted to throw that out there, Rodolfo.
Yeah, ultimately, Bitcoin has no leaders, there is no officials. They just don't trust, verify. That's it. That's how anything related to Bitcoin is don't trust, verify. And you have to learn how to verify things. That's sort of how, that's the only safe way to do Bitcoin.
Absolutely. And again, the tools are becoming easier and easier right now. There's a lot of command line stuff, guys, but this stuff is moving along, and it's important to get it right first before we build pretty user interfaces. So it's important to get the ethos, the actual processes right, with as little amount of trust as possible before we start adding on all sorts of extra stuff. Because things like Ethereum and MetaMask that are just storing everything in the browser, guys, it's not going to scale. It's not going to be secure. There will be no large amounts of liquidity in these types of systems because it will always get hacked. It will always get hacked when you put this stuff in the browser.
Yeah, I mean, don't use browser-based solutions for anything. I mean, the browser is owned. Right. I mean, look what just happened to one of the main hardware wallets. Their browser application got compromised, and I think it was just putting like payment addresses that were sending the money to somebody else. Because see, it doesn't matter if the key is secure if you're not sending money to the right key, to the right address. So don't use browser-based solutions. It's a bag of hurt. It's impossible to get it right.
Absolutely. All right, Rodolfo, let's see if we can let's close this out. Do you have any closing thoughts about either the OpenDime or the ColdCard before maybe I ask you a little bit about what's going on with Mastodon?
Sure. I guess so. So the thing is, we have OpenDimes in stock. So go get it. And here's the thing: like we sell these guys very fast. So it goes on and off stock. So whenever you see it in stock, get it because it does run out. We can't keep it. Like we try and we keep on doubling the production runs from the previous one, and it's
still not enough. It's still not enough. But guys, and again, guys, they're not trying to just like pump this out like just by the billions and billions and disregard security practices. It takes a large amount of work to get this to be produced securely. So when you guys see that there's a new batch, make sure to jump on it.
Yeah, and then for ColdCard, we did start to ship a few. The machine that closes the cases, it's having some issues, so we had to slow down the shipments. But they're going in order of purchase. We pre-sold a ton of these, so it's gonna take a little while to get them out. And we're getting an extra machine to close cases too, so we can speed up the process. But we're not gonna compromise like quality or security to go faster. So sorry.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that we wouldn't have it any other way. I don't think so, Rodolfo. So very, very cool. There is somebody asking you to show off the UASF hat in the background, but we all know what a UASF hat is, guys. I mean, Rodolfo's got the best hats. He's got all the hats. So proof of hat is definitely strong. With Rodolfo.
Change to this one now.
Oh, there you go. Beautiful. Now we got a new hat for those listening in the audio. Rodolfo has switched his hat to the to the Don't Trust Verify hat, which is a very key aspect of the ethos for OpenDime. So very, very cool, guys. Thank you so much, Rodolfo. Listen, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I would like to maybe just get your quick thoughts on Mastodon, because essentially there's been a movement recently on crypto Twitter out there because of all of the impersonating accounts and people getting their accounts locked and people getting actually kicked off the Twitter entirely. There has been this movement now to kind of move to this more decentralized service, this decentralized version of Twitter called Mastodon. Maybe Rodolfo, you can tell us all what's going on with that.
So, I mean, people have to understand, right? Like Twitter is a gigantic, massive system trying to cater to an insane amount of different interests, right? So like modding, like doing what's the word? Skip my mind now. Doing the moderation of Twitter is very hard, right? So people do get caught in the machine. There's a lot of competing interests that may just try to sandbag your posts so they will accidentally block something, whatever. I don't think it's malice, but the thing is, it does happen, right? So there's this Twitter clone called Mastodon, and it is a federated system. If people don't know what that is, it's essentially like you can run your own server of Mastodon, right? So you can run your own version of it that has its users, and they can communicate with other servers because it's a federation, right? And like a federation, if you go to one but you don't like how they moderate things, you can go to another one, or you can start your own. right? And let's say there is one server that's truly awful. Well, you can block that server all completely, and essentially you choose your poison, right? So I saw that some people were going to Mastodon, and I was like, hey, you know what? I mean, might as well create a maximalist sort of focus Bitcoin server where we can all sort of hang out. And so I got in touch with a guy who runs a lot of instances of Mastodon, and like we put one together in a decent server, and and overnight, 1,500 people came over. And it's still growing. I don't even know what's the number now. Let's see here. Yeah, so it's about 1,500 people came over. And I mean, I personally don't think that this is the ultimate solution. It has some shortcomings that bother me. Like, for example, identity is not solved problem in the system, and it probably won't be because of what most of the people in the system use it for. But I think it's extremely important for us to understand and have ways and do training on how do you move from one platform to another under a censorship sort of regime, right? So let's say things on Twitter go crazy with censorship, right? We don't know, that could happen. So how do we continue the conversation without much disruption so that we can continue moving, the Bitcoin space along? And I found that the experiment with Mastodon is wonderful because it does respect some of the decentralized ethos of Bitcoin because it is federated. So anyway, so I wanted to see if we can make this happen and how far we can take it. I'm pretty skeptical if this is gonna take over Twitter. There's a lot of people on Twitter that are very interesting to follow that are not necessarily Bitcoiners. That you still want to interact with. So it seems that, unless, and this is a known problem with social networks, it's like, unless everybody moves over, it has a tendency to monopolize itself like currencies do. Everybody wants to use the one that everybody's using, and that creates sort of chicken egg problem. So anyways, we're playing with it. It's growing. We're having fun. We're shit posting a lot. And then we'll see where it goes. Who knows? And I want to make it very clear, right? Like that Mastodon was not designed with privacy in mind, right? So, use a VPN. Don't send private messages that are meant to be secret. Like just assume everything is read, right? And that's sort of your best way, because my instance is centralized. It's centralized on me.
Correct. And what is the URL of that instance for viewers who want to join this?
I had this domain running around as bitcoinhackers.org.
Nice. Bitcoinhackers.org, guys. So if you do want to check out this new social network, Mastodon, definitely head over to Rodolfo's instance, because that's the best instance, guys, by far. Check that out over there at bitcoinhackers.org. And you just basically fill in your email and your password, and you will be able to have an account over there. And as Rodolfo said, there has been thousands of people already that have joined Mastodon. We don't know if this is going to scale, or if this is going to if all of crypto Twitter is going to move over. We have no idea about that, but we did want to at least just kind of give this a shot, because we're almost being forced to just explore other mediums because of Twitter's rules and privacies and their actions that they've taken towards their users recently. We at least have to get the conversation going, right? Of exploring some new ways, because we don't want everything always centralized to one service. Even if there was a perfect service for crypto Twitter, we just don't want everything on that one service, because that becomes a central point of failure. So guys, check it out if you get a chance. It is pretty cool. I'm on there as well. You can find me at Vortex, and of course Rodolfo will be there at NVK. So check that out when you get a chance. But I think that's about it. Rodolfo, do you have any closing thoughts?
No, I mean, I'm really enjoying this year in Bitcoin, because we solved the scalability problem. That's done, and now we're all focusing on privacy. I think like privacy and more people in is sort of the next bastion. Lightning provides an incredible amount of privacy. So does all those other things that are coming up, and a lot of people are putting a lot of energy in that. I find that's pretty cool. That's what makes Bitcoin fungible, is the fact that people don't know who you are.
That's right. That's right. So very, very cool. I'm just going to end it out then with a screen share of the website, guys. Check us out at opendime.com and, of course, the coldcardwallet.com. So this has been the first episode, guys, of Deciphered right here on the CryptoCast Network. We really appreciate everybody joining us live. This really is a community-funded YouTube channel. We want it to be community funded so that we can get what you guys want, and we don't want to rely on big sponsors or anything like that. So we are actually accepting donations. You guys can check this out. We've had a couple already, so we really, really appreciate that. You can always find the donation address and the video details or at the bottom of the CryptoCast Network website. And of course, another thing that supports this network is the programmingwithbitcoin.com workshop, guys. Again, this is a great complimentary workshop to Jimmy's workshop, who is teaching protocol developers. This is going to teach application developers, specifically C# application developers, to work with Bitcoin. And we did just open up 2 new cities, which of course is San Francisco on October 6th and November 3rd in Seattle. So please, guys, check that out. If you get a chance, let everybody know. The instructors will be myself and the creator of NBitcoin himself, Mr. Nicolas Dorier. I'm not sure if it's Nicholas or Nicola, but there's a couple different pronunciations of that. So thanks again, guys. We really appreciate you joining. We will be hopefully doing more episodes of this particular show, Deciphered, in the future, and we have a bunch more shows planned. So thanks again, everybody, so much for joining us again. We will be back. And so until next time, guys, keep talking Bitcoin. We'll see you guys later.